This chord is so wrong, yet so right. Stick around to unlock its haunting beauty. The beautiful augmented triad. Some people would say it almost has an ugly sound to it, but when you put it in context with a line of chords, there's this beautiful thing that happens that kind of engages your listener, and it spices up a song. It gives it a climbing effect. So here's a D chord. Okay, and to make a D chord, a D major chord, into a D augmented chord, or any major chord for that matter, you need to do the theory of the chord, find the fifth, and raise it a half step, or 1 fret. If we take this simple D chord, and we do the theory here, we have 3 notes. The note on the G string, A, is the fifth of the chord. So we're going to come back to that in a second. The root is here, and the third is here. The root and the third remain stationary, and the fifth is going to move up a half step. So we get this sound. If you know the song Baby Hold On by Eddie Money, the verse section is basically repeating D to D augmented over and over again. And then eventually it makes what we call the climb. What makes this chord beautiful is when it's part of this climbing inner line, it's very effective. And so what we're going to do is we're going to play a D chord. We're going to bring the fifth up to the sharp 5 and make it into an augmented chord. Then we're going to bring the sharp 5 up to the 6, up to the B here. Now we could go back down like this. Or but sometimes it continues to climb. So we have the fifth, the augmented with the sharp 5, then the sixth with the B here, and we go one more half step to a C, and we stretch out here and we get a D dominant 7th chord. Same as like this D7, just in a different inversion. And typically this chord, because it's a D7, will go to G, the 4 chord in the key of D. And then a lot of times that G will turn into a minor chord and go back to 1. That sounds like this. Talked about the G, G minor, D. So why don't we move on to the open position chords and talk about how we can augment those chords. I'm talking about the caged chords, C, A, G, E, and D. So if we start with the C chord, we get this shape everybody knows. And now we're looking for the fifth of the C chord. The fifth of C is G. Where's a G in this chord? It's the open G string. And so that's going to move up a half step to G sharp. Now we can continue on up to the 6. So here's C. All of this is on the G string, G sharp. I move up another half step to C6, and then C7. Then I might go to F minor, back to C. A chord. So the fifth in this chord, there's 2 5s in this chord. One is on the D string, the other is on the high E. So let's take the one that's on the D string, and we bring that up a half step to E sharp, not F, even though technically it's an F, but it really is an E sharp because we're sharping the 5. So E goes up to E sharp, and it sounds like this. A augmented, A6, A7. A lot of times when you have a series of chords where there's a line moving, in this case it's a good idea to get into the habit of not feeling like you have to strum the whole guitar all the time. Isolate strings. In this case, I'm using 3 strings with a drone. So I'm using the A shape with this A here. And so I'm utilizing the middle 4 strings basically. And I'm doing a little bit of palm muting. There's the 6, flat 7, 4 chord, 4 minor, back to 1. I played a 4 minor 6, by the way. All right, so let's go on. We did C, we did A, and now we move on to G, caged. So here's the G chord, would be like this. And again, we're going to isolate a little bit. We can use the G bass as a kind of a drone bass. The G chord, the D, or the 5th in this chord, is on the open D string. So we're going to bring that up a half step. And this is a cool sound. I like this particular shape. So here's augmented. 3, 4. We did C, we did A, we did G, so now we move on to E. And the E is interesting because there's 3 E's in this. There's one here and here. It's 3 roots. There's also 2 fifths. So we're going to have to eliminate one of those fifths because we have to bring it up to the sharp 5th. And we're going to minimize this into the top 4 or 3 strings. We have this E here, G sharp here, open B, open E. Okay, now the B, the open B is going to move up to B sharp. Not C, but B sharp. We get this shape. Then it moves up to C sharp for the 6. And then I could go up again for the E7. So we get something like this. And again, I'm isolating 3, maybe 4 strings. Or so that covers the open position chords. And now I'd like to bring up what's called a vamp. A vamp is like where you repeat the same thing over and over again. I believe the term goes back to the theater where an actor would be coming on stage in a musical and they had to get into their place on the stage. And then once the actor got into place, then the conductor would move the orchestra on and they would go into the song. My favorite shape for this, let's call it the Broadway vamp, is to play an open voice triad. It's a bit of a stretch, but it's worth it. It's got a good sound. Okay, so I'm going to play for you first the 5th, moving up to the sharp 5, going back to the 5th. Now, I'm going to take it up to the 6. Now let's go to the flat 7. And then you would go on your way from there. This shape comes in real handy. This is for a C chord. Here's your C in the bass, over to the 5th, over to the 3rd. And you get this nice open sound. And that's with the open voice triad. Let's now talk about closed voice triads. These are triads where the intervals of the triad are all squeezed into one octave. The distance from the lowest note to the highest note is in an octave. Okay, so we're going to take the chord A, and I'm going to use the top 3 strings, what we call set 1. E string, B string, G string. That's called set 1, string set. And we're going to play this simple A chord. I have an A, a C sharp, and an open E. And if I go to the next inversion of this chord, I get this A chord, C sharp, E, and A. And then the next inversion is E, A, and C sharp. So if we go back to the first one where we had A, C sharp, and E, and we bring the E up to E sharp, we get the augmented. Kind of a tight, closed triad sound. Okay, and then we bring that up to the 6, which sounds like this. And if we wanted the flat 7, it would sound like this. Sharp 5, A augmented, A6, A7, D, D minor, A. And you can see that that line brings your listener in. It builds. And anytime in music, when things are going in an upward direction, it creates excitement. Anyway, so we were talking about this A here. Let's go up to this A. The 5th is in the middle now. A augmented. 6. And 7 with 3 notes. So notice it's on the B string. Okay, now we move up to this guy. Now the 5th is on the G string. That's the augmented. The 6. And this is an A7 chord. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel on your way out. For more information on my signature guitar and musicianship courses, check out the information in the links below. Bye for now.